Have you ever stopped to think about your place in the world? Not just where you are right now, but how you got here and where you might be headed? Well, in this explainer, we're going to climb what's called the social ladder to get a handle on a huge idea that really shapes all of our lives: social mobility. So let's just cut right to the chase with the big question. Can you actually change your social status? Is the position you were born into something that's set in stone for life? Or is there a kind of social elevator that can take you to different floors? That's really the fundamental question we're digging into here. Now, of course, there's a formal name for this whole concept. It's called social mobility, a term first introduced by the sociologist Peterim Sorokin. And it's basically the framework sociologists use to describe all that movement we see within a society's hierarchy, whether that's people moving up, down, or even just sideways. To put it really simply, social mobility is all about the connection between your starting point in life, what we call your social origin, and where you end up later on, your social destination. And you can think of it like this: how strong is that link? Because really, the weaker that link is, the more mobile or fluid that society is considered to be. Okay, so why should we even care about any of this? Well, it turns out social mobility isn't just some abstract academic idea. It's actually a vital sign of a society's overall health, and it's about way more than just a few people making it big. There are three really huge reasons why this matters so much. First, it comes down to fairness and justice, that core idea of meritocracy, right? Second, it's about economic efficiency. I mean, think about it. A rigid society totally wastes the talents of people who happen to be born at the bottom. And third, it's crucial for social integration. If large groups of people feel like they're completely trapped, that can lead to some serious social conflict. And this quote just nails the principle perfectly. Most of us kind of accept that life outcomes can be unequal based on personal effort. The hard work you put in, the choices you make. But the ideal of equal opportunity is all about saying your outcomes shouldn't be decided by your circumstances, the stuff you have zero control over, like what family you were born into. All right, so we get that it's important, but what does this movement actually look like in the real world? It's not always about climbing up that ladder. Sometimes people slide down, or maybe they just move sideways to a different ladder altogether. So let's break down the different types. The first and maybe most basic distinction to make is between vertical and horizontal mobility. A good way to think about it is this: are you actually changing floors on the social ladder, or are you just moving to a different office but on the very same floor? Vertical mobility is what most of us picture when we hear the term. It's a real change in your social class or status. A classic example of upward vertical mobility would be something like the daughter of a farmer who studies hard, goes to college, and eventually becomes a top executive at a big company. She has definitely moved up the ladder. Now, on the flip side, you have horizontal mobility. This is where there's a change in your position, but not really a change in your social status. For instance, imagine a high school teacher who moves to a totally new city and gets another teaching job at a similar kind of school. Their profession, their income, their social standing, it all stays pretty much the same, even though their job and location are different. Okay, but here's where things get a little more interesting, a little more complex. We also have to draw a line between absolute mobility and relative mobility. They might sound kind of similar, but they're actually measuring two very, very different kinds of progress. Absolute mobility is about the overall standard of living improving across the board. You know the saying, a rising tide lifts all boats? That's basically it. So, for example, thanks to general economic growth over the years, a young college grad today might earn way more in real terms than their father did at the same age. Their life is objectively better, materially speaking, but that doesn't automatically mean they've climbed higher on the social ladder compared to everyone else. And this is what people are usually talking about when they mention that social elevator. Relative mobility measures an actual change in your rank within the hierarchy. So think of the son of a factory worker who goes on to become a senior manager. He hasn't just benefited from a growing economy, he has fundamentally changed his position on that ladder compared to where his family started. That's the true sign of a fluid, mobile society. The final distinction we need to make really just comes down to the time frame we're looking at. Intergenerational mobility, and this is the one that gets studied the most, compares your social position to that of your parents. But intragenerational mobility, on the other hand, tracks the changes that happen within your own lifetime. It's that classic story of someone starting in the mailroom and ending their career as the CEO. So with all these different types and nuances, how in the world do we actually measure social mobility? Well, sociologists have a pretty specific toolkit they use to get a sense of just how fluid or rigid a society really is. They tend to look at four key things. First up is income, which is pretty straightforward: your salary, bonuses, what you earn from work. Then there's wealth, which is different. It's all about accumulated assets, like property, stocks, and especially inheritance. Education is a huge one, of course, because it's a major gateway to better opportunities. And finally, occupation itself is often used as a really powerful shorthand for your overall social standing.
But, and this is a really crucial point, there's a big limitation here. These tools are fantastic for telling us if a society is fluid, meaning people can move around the ladder easily, or if it's rigid, where they're pretty much stuck. But what these numbers don't tell us is whether the society as a whole is moving forward or backward. You could, for example, have a very fluid society during a massive economic collapse. It's just that most of the movement would be downward.
And all of this brings us right back to the biggest question of all. When you put everything together, all the different types of mobility, all the ways we try to measure it, is that social elevator actually working today? Is it still taking people up? Is it stuck between floors? Or maybe, for some people, is it only going down? Answering that, well, that's what this entire field of study is trying to figure out.